Good morning, everybody. We're going to call to order the Tuesday, July 7th Board of Commissioners meeting to order at 10:01. If you would, please rise if you're able for our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We hope everybody had a happy and good Independence Day over the weekend. We're excited to see everybody today, and we will jump into public comment. And in accordance with the Sunshine Act, attendees will be given the opportunity to comment on matters of concern, official action, or deliberation before the board. For the items that are not on our agenda, we'll offer the opportunity for public comment at this time. But if there is public comment for items that we are going to be considering later on the agenda, we'd ask you to wait until then, and we can have you discuss those things and your thoughts at that time. Anyone addressing the board either during this time or later on in the agenda for any other items will be given 5 minutes to do so. We also want to recognize any individuals that are calling in through our conference line. If you'd like to make a comment, just hit *5 on your keypad, and we will recognize you as well. So with that, is there any public comment for items not on today's agenda? Okay, please. Yes, sir. We'll turn the floor over to you, and if you're able to, just state your name and...
So, my name is Ryan Bowman. I'm the founder and executive director for Pennsylvania Outdoor Veterans.
You might want to use the microphone there that way. Oh, that's okay. Yeah, if it's,
I'm sorry. All right,
good.
so I'm the founder and executive director for Pennsylvania Outdoor Veterans. We cover the state of Pennsylvania, all 67 counties, along with their families and caregivers here in Pennsylvania. Our mission objective is to reduce the number of suicides amongst veterans as it's rising. As you can tell, it's been a five-year high of veteran suicide. We now have caregivers who are now committing suicide in addition to veterans. The Department of Defense, this is released from September of 2019, their most recent report that showed that National Guard members are at the highest risk of suicide. The reason it brings me here today is not only this, but one of the things that we have embarked on is looking at building a retreat center to better get more veterans out there, family members and caregivers, and providing those services. We have identified a property here in Center County in Moshannon that is approximately 5,700 acres. We have not made a formal bid on that property. However, we are in the process of doing our due diligence between our consultants, our geologist, architect, forestry, and a few other consultants as well. However, what brings me here specifically is in hopes to have a letter of support from the county commissioners in this project, contingent that due diligence on our end is satisfied as we're required by Pennsylvania law to do as board of directors. That facility, not only would it be the largest facility in the Commonwealth, it would also be the largest facility in the nation. That's not necessarily why we're doing this. We're looking at more specifically, at how many veterans can we get through on a yearly basis. The cost factor of what we're doing versus what it costs us with having a retreat facility are night and day. You're looking at almost $200 in going out and having a lodge and renting it out, $200 per person versus almost $42 per person. So we can get a lot more accomplished with donors' money. We are fortunate that we do have some donors out there, serious donors who are willing to back this project. We don't think that's going to be an issue in stopping this. I think right now we're at the process of due diligence. We're in the preliminary stages. But I do have some of those drawings that I do want to show you to give you an idea as commissioners as to what we're looking at. I apologize for the mess.
No, you're good. It's not a worry. Yeah.
So this is the elevation drawing that our architect has done for us. That is the facility. That facility is 21,000 square feet. It is 3 floors. It can house up to, there's 18 rooms in that facility. That project facility right now, based on our calculations with our architect, is about $14 million. Excuse me, I stand corrected. The project total together is $14 million. The cost of building that is $7 million. I apologize. That is the ground floor dining facility. Adjacent off of the dining facility would be an outside organic garden, and the reason we've gone with that is because studies show that nutrition plays a factor with post-traumatic stress and traumatic brain injury with veterans, and cortisone levels spiking as well, and dopamine. So if we get a short period of time with those veterans in order to help them with getting them set with 5 days of they're eating 3 times a day, perhaps when they return home, they're back into that eating consistently. The other thing that we're looking at adjacent to this is at some point we have discussed it, the board has discussed it, in putting in a farmette of some sort, and whatever is produced on the property would go back to veterans and families across the Commonwealth, working with different organizations. 1.2. I'll take that. 1.2 is just simply the schematic of the rooms. The bedrooms. This facility will be named after, as you can look, I have 2 bracelets on, Special Chad Edmondson, who was killed in 2009 with me in Iraq, and Staff Sergeant Mark Baum, who was also killed. This facility will be named after them in their memory. That as well. And then the final one is simply adjacent to the main floor of the lodge, and looking at, this is actually the center floor of the lodge, and basically the kitchenette dining area, and the common areas and everything like that. It's a pretty interesting design. It's a preliminary design at this point in time. It's nothing finalized. I know that there's been some comments by some of our directors. It's some things that we may change as we go. But the property, tonight I will be up in Snowshoe Township at the Township Supervisors meeting with them to show them the same exact plans, and speak with them, and hoping to have the same letter of support from them as well as Rush Township on Wednesday night as well. So I certainly would welcome a letter of support from you guys. I think it just helps us out in this process, particularly when we go forward with speaking with donors, and everything of that nature. The opportunities that we have in this property are endless. There's a financial stability aspect to this property that we have to keep in mind, that we have to pay for these programs. You can go after grants, But those grants, for so long, can you ask for those grants? We've been in existence 5 years, since 2015. We have grown exponentially year and year after. This past year, we got a $35,000 grant from the Donald and Dorothy Stabler Foundation for programs. Thankfully, we did get that. With COVID, it has been very difficult. It is just as everyone else, it has delayed our ability to do programs and everything as well. Do you guys have any questions for me?
I think, Ryan, the first thing we want to say is thank you for coming out here, making the journey here, not only for our meeting today, but also the consideration of the property in Center County. It really would be an honor to have something like this in the county, and it's obviously a dream of yours. It's something that you've really envisioned and spent a lot of time thinking about. So, again, thank you for the presentation. Also, even with COVID, you're persevering. So you're one of the folks who is not letting this deter you. You're advancing. You're making sure
Yes.
that you're going forward with this. So we applaud you for that as well.
Thank you.
One of the things I think that we would love to do is learn more. I know we know that you have a website. We'd love to be able to maybe schedule some more time that we could, in the short amount of time here.
Yes.
We have our other business that we have to attend to, but it'd be great to jump on a video call to learn a little bit more, bring in some people that we know in the community that support veterans organizations, and trying to start linking you with people here that would be interested in supporting this. And again, we know the Snowshoe Township supervisors well, the Rush Township supervisors, so they will, I think, welcome you with open arms and listen to you and hear a great presentation from you. So, and again, you touched a little bit on this about why you are doing this, and
Correct.
why you're passionate about this. And we thank you for your service, and we thank you for everything you've done for the country overseas, and now you want to return the favor and do some things for other people here. And so that's really meaningful, very meaningful. So we appreciate your heart and the fact that you want to help people. So,
And I definitely look forward to those conversations, and certainly I've been given the complete blessings by my board to, hey, do whatever you need to do and whatever meetings that you need to do. We fully support you on that. So, certainly, please feel free to reach out to me, and we can certainly set up something, and either whether video conference or otherwise. I certainly welcome to come out here to State College. I went to Penn College of Technology, so I always enjoy coming out this way. So I appreciate it very much. Any other questions?
I was just more curious. 5,000 plus acres is a pretty significant project. What other activities will occur at the facility beyond just the structure that you intend?
Well, I think not only is there going to be, we have fly fishing. We have it's about 12 and a half miles of the Moshannon and the Black Moshannon around that property. That gives us opportunity with fly fishing. There's also going to be hunting on the property as well. Additional to that is the farm abilities there to do that. But our opportunities at this point are endless with a property of this size. Again, we're still in our process of due diligence and looking at this property. Nothing's been finalized, but we're pretty. We're thinking we're pretty good on things so far. So we felt comfortable in coming out here, making that conversation with you and connecting. But as far as activities, there's at some point. I think a lot of it is with a lot of these veterans, they just need to get out of their own head. This is not a long-term facility of such where veterans are going to be there for months on end or 2 weeks on end. This is, maybe a weekend, maybe the most a week during hunting season, or a week during fly fishing and that. But this is not a long-term facility. This is a short-term recreational, therapeutic opportunity for them, and different way to approach how you deal with post-traumatic stress disorder and traumatic brain injury. Yep.
Intriguing project, Ryan. Would like to hear more. Happy to do it remotely, though. Yes.
Okay. I didn't hear that last
I
part.
said happy to do that remotely if we could.
Yes, that's absolutely fine. Yeah.
And Natalie is you've been emailing with her. She's in our office right around the corner here. Please
Okay.
stop in and
Okay.
schedule something with us, and we can make ourselves available. And again, we really want to connect you with people that we know here that are also passionate and help in any way we can. So again, you have a dream, and
Yeah.
so keep at it. Please
Yeah,
do.
this is definitely something, and this isn't, and I want to say this isn't necessarily just my dream. We had spoken with about 40 veterans. This has been in the works almost about 2 years. So this is not something that just I came up with. Certainly my board has had a lot of input in this as well. So this has been a team effort, and a lot of other people who support us and volunteers who've reached out and said, "Hey, I think this would work." There are other adjacent things that would occur on the property too, and I think specifically there are activities with a metal and wood shop. And sometimes what you have to do with some of these veterans, you have to redirect them and learning different ways of coping with things. And sometimes even those hobbies help out immensely. I know, in fact, the Warriors Heart of Texas does that. They have a rehab, drug facility rehab, and they actually use that as one of their therapies. And that's something that we would be doing. But right now we're focused on the adjacent main building. Those other buildings that may be on the property, certainly we would cover down on those through the sustainable income potential on this property. So we would look at that as we went down the road, and certainly I hope we have the not only the support of you as commissioners, but I hope we have the support of the county and the residents here in the county. And if anyone reaches out to you to want more information, please feel free to give out my information. If there's any questions that need to be answered, I'm certainly willing to answer those questions.
We have the website is paoutdoorveterans.org.
Yes, that is correct.
paoutdoorveterans.org. And is it okay to say your email?
Yeah, that's fine, yeah.
It's rbowman, BOWMAN 430
Yes.
@gmail.com. So please reach out to Ryan. Any questions before Ryan departs? Marley or Gary?
Could you just reiterate the location again of where it's 5,000 acres?
The property that we're looking at is in Moshannon. It's off of Gorton Road and Moshannon. I forget the state that it was previously referred to, and I'd have to go back on documents. I can't remember everything, but that's where the property is located, is Moshannon.
And then just finally, could you spell the name that you want to name the lodge after, which means?
It's Specialist Chad, common spelling, Edmondson, EDMUNDSON, and then Staff Sergeant Mark, common spelling, Baum, BAUM. Thank you.
So you're looking to combine recreational with maybe some therapeutic or counseling at this center?
I think that is the idea and the discussion that has been before our board, that right now the preliminary stages is acquiring the property, getting the building built, and then we are looking at a model to have outdoor recreational therapists involved in this process. Again, we're putting a business plan together right now with our due diligence, and we're looking at those aspects of the project that has not been taken out of it. It's one step at a time is what we're taking at this point.
Ryan, thank you once again.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, we'll look for any other public comment at this time. Seeing none in the room and seeing none on the phone, we'll move on to the consideration of our minutes, and this would be from our June 30th meeting. Would there be a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the minutes of the June 30th Board of Commissioners meeting.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion is
I
carried.
wasn't here.
Oh, okay. Any abstentions?
But I should abstain, I
Okay,
guess.
one abstention, okay. 2 in favor and 1 abstaining. Okay. Going on to, so the motion is carried for COVID-19 planning and response. We'll have a little bit of a discussion later on regarding our resolution, but we are going to jump into our contracts. We have 2. Margaret, would you be willing to cover these for the prothonotary? Thank you.
The first contract for the Prothonotary's office is a contract with Helen Stolinas, Esquire of the Mazza Law Group to serve as solicitor for the Center County Prothonotary and Clerk of Court's office. The contract rate is $125 per hour, not to exceed $3,750 for the period of July 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2020. And the second contract is also with an attorney, Justin P. Miller, to serve as a conflict counsel in the event that Helen Stolinas would be unable to serve for the Center County Prothonotary and Clerk of Court's office. Contract rate is $125 per hour for the period of July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021. And of course, this is on an as-needed basis.
Thank you, Margaret. Any questions on these items? Okay. Hearing none, would there be a motion?
Motion to add the contracts with Helen Stolinas Esquire and Justin P. Miller Esquire to next week's consent agenda.
It's been moved and seconded. Any final discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. The motion is carried. Okay. Thank you, Margaret. All right, we're going to welcome up Natalie for some human services items. Good morning, Natalie.
Good morning. So the first 2 items I have are on behalf of the mental health and autism disability, earlier mentioned drug and alcohol. There are 2 letter agreements. It's on now. There are 2 letter of agreements for those departments. The first is with Beacon Light Behavioral Health System and Beacon Light Adult Residential Services. These are the collaborations that we put into place to promote the supportive coordination of care of individuals from Center County or their facilities, and to make sure we have that agreement in place. It's often due to licensing that they prefer to have these agreements. So Beacon Light's agreement is from July 1, 2020 through June 30th, 2022. The second linkage agreements with Crossroads Counseling. As you know, we work with Crossroads extensively, both as an outpatient facility as well as our correctional facility. But this is just, again, that established referral procedures, compliance with confidentiality, and collaboration. Again, no cost for this agreement. And this one is no termination because we just have that ongoing relationship with Crossroads.
Okay, thank you, Natalie, very much. Any questions for either of these items? Okay. Hearing none, is there a motion?
Motion to add the agreements for MHID-EI drug and alcohol to next week's consent agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any final discussion on this? Questions? Okay. Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Motion is carried. Okay. And then for CYS.
So I'm going to break these down a little bit for you. So numbers 1, 2, 3, and 5 are for fiscal year 2019-2020, so the one that we just finished up last week. And these are contracts primarily with foster care services and daycare services for youth that we came into contact with, that we thus reached out and worked with that provider on. So those 4 contracts total $62,647, with the county share being $12,529. Contract 4 is with Premier Biotech for lab services and drug testing. We do that contract on a calendar basis, so that goes from January 1, 2020 through December 31st, 2020, and that contract total is for $5,000 with the county share of $1,000. So the remaining contracts, 6 through 15, they are all for our new fiscal year, July 1, 2020 through June 30th, 2021. As you know, Children and Youth does their budget a year in advance, so we are already received an allocation for what the 2021 budget will look like. And so these are really services that we must provide right away. They are primarily our residential services and our foster care services, so we must have those in place and really make sure that those that we already are working with, we just continue that relationship with. So in total, these contracts total $1,090,490 of services throughout the Commonwealth for our children. Not only are they in services, but they're also for our computer system, CAPS as we call it, which is a requirement for our Children and Youth Office. The county share of that $1 million is $337,846. So all of these run July 1, 2020 through June 30th, 2021.
Thank you, Natalie. Just a question for the portions that it's state funded. We do know that the state fiscal year, or the state fiscal year started about a week ago, but they have passed a 5-month budget. in terms of how we would approach as we get into this, or we get closer to December and that end of that 5-month stopgap budget, if there were any changes, if there was any, let's just put it like that. If there was any changes, how are we approaching that with these entities that we're contracting with?
Well, we would really approach it is for other services that you contract with in the future. So a lot of our purchase services that we do that are unique services that we in Center County sometimes have to offer that are not the mandates that we do like these are when it comes to placement and residential services. So these we are obligated to. This is always up to. So this is just based on what we've spent last year and what we are anticipating for. So some of these numbers don't always meet that contract. So we would adjust after 5 months if we saw a lower usage in one area than another. And we would also then look at some of our purchase services that we do and see if that's an opportunity that we would have to reduce. But these are the obligated ones that we receive our allocation for, these services that we are doing today.
Thank you, Natalie. And I know you're going to get a little bit more into that when we jump into our Human Services Block Grant, so just a preview of that. But yeah, any other feedback, questions?
And I did just clarify, I did talk to Julia before this in terms of if they heard anything about their budget. They've not been, guidance from them have not been to kind of adjust these contracts with these providers due to, the importance of placement services and the foster services. They encourage that. So no guidance from state associations, anything different from this.
All right, hearing no questions, comments, feedback, we look for a motion.
Motion to approve the items for Children and Youth Services 1 through 15 with a minor typo correction on number 5 to April 1st, 2020.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we're not going back that far. We're not going back that far.
Let's just make sure that
We're reading them.
That's right. Okay. Noted correction, it's been moved and seconded. Any final discussion on those items? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried. Okay. Thank you, Natalie. We'll see you in just a bit. Margaret, over to capital projects.
Thank you. I have two change orders to present this morning, and I'll talk about the two change orders first, and then I have some summary information to provide so that you can see where we are in terms of change orders related to the total cost of the project. The first change order number 5 with electrical contractor Stelco. This change order provides an increase of $3,775.72 for painting to the exposed red fire alarm conduit and repair to the cut conduit to restore power. This increases the electrical contract from $192,705 to $196,480.82. And so just let me explain what happened here. A small portion of this, about a third, $1,200, is for the painting of the red conduit piping. The remainder of it is because when the second floor concrete was cut to form the trenches for the plumbing in the restrooms on the second floor, the contractor was not aware, no one was aware that the conduit was actually running through the concrete. So when they cut it, they severed the circuit, and the repair had to be made immediately because there was no power to that portion of the courthouse. No one knew it was there, and common construction practice, they tell me, is that conduit should be running under the concrete, not part of it. And so this was totally unforeseen, and they were able to reroute the circuit and provide power to that section of the courthouse within a very short period of time, so an unforeseen item. Change order number 6 is with general contractor J.C. Orr for the courthouse renovation project. This change provides an increase of $950 for sign installation. This increases, and this is a typo, the general contract total from $647,210.33 to $648,160.33. So the courthouse renovation project at the start was a $1,260,036 project. Our current project total now is $1,281,559.09. The total amount of change orders to date is $21,523.09, or in percentage terms, 17% of the total. If you
1.7. There's got to be a decimal in there.
Okay. If you were to remove the signage from the 21,523.09 and take out that 5,000 approximately for the signage, now more with the order today, the percentage of the total would be about 13%, the overage amount.
Okay. Of that,
So
That's good. Okay.
the project started at 1.26 million, and we're about 13% over the
1.3.
1.3%.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, That's okay. That's okay. No worries. So basically 21,000 out of 1.2 million, 21,000 additional. Okay. All right. And we're,
So a very,
That's very small.
very minimal amount, yes. Mhm. That's what happens when you calculate it on your phone.
no, that's okay. No worries.
So
And
overall, project is moving along. The contractors are working on the last part of the fire suppression system. They drilled through the roof yesterday. They're working on the fourth floor and into the attic, and it's moving along, so.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you, Margaret. We know there's been some questions about when it's going to be finished or when we're going to be, again, we want to be conservative with that. We don't want to make promises we can't keep, but it does seem like it's progressing on. Any update in terms of time frame, timeline?
The contractors meet with us every other Monday. We met yesterday. I asked for an updated time, and the inside will probably be finished in August, sometime in August. We're going to approach Center Region Code to see if they might give us a partial occupancy so that we could start to use the vestibule in the back and that newly renovated space. There are outside things to happen. Some asphalt needs to be laid and that sort of thing, so.
The advantage of having that vestibule open is that is traditionally has been our main disability access area, so that would be very handy to have that available.
Absolutely. Yeah, the ramp has been serving out front well, but the ease of using that, we would obviously want that one. And yeah.
We've been pushing.
Yes, absolutely.
We're pushing, but we also want to appreciate the balance of doing the work well and doing it thoroughly. So whatever it takes, they've got to do it the right way. So.
Excellent. Okay, super. Any other questions, feedback on that? Okay, well, if not, would there be a motion?
Motion to approve change orders number 5 and number 6 for the courthouse renovation and addition project.
It's been moved and seconded. Any final questions, comments on this? Okay, hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried. Okay. All right, Natalie, we will welcome you back up, and we will provide you the clicker there. And it should be on. Let's see, is it green there? Yep. Okay, super. Okay.
Good morning. So what we have today is for the board to consider for consent is our fiscal year 2020-2021 Human Service Block Grant. And so we thought we would do a little bit of an overview of the plan and show you where we are at with it as we walk into this year. So Act 80 of 2012 established the Human Service Block Grant. We always acronym and everything, so you'll see that. What's important to note about this is it really encompasses 2 county departments, but it provides a plethora of services in our community. So it does the mental health community-based funding services, our behavioral health services initiative, which is mental health and drug and alcohol, our intellectual disabilities community-based services, our Act 153 drug and alcohol, which is a very specific category of drug and alcohol services, our homeless assistance program funding, and what we call our Human Services Development Fund. So all of these categories came together with Act 80 of 2012, and counties were able to apply to become a block grant county. So we were one of the original 20 counties that entered into the block grant plan in fiscal year 2012-2013. And beginning this fiscal year, we will have 44 counties out of 67 that will be participating in the Human Services Block Grant. So we've kind of finally gone over that 50% mark throughout the Commonwealth. The remaining counties still receive their funding, but what they don't receive by being in a block grant is the flexibility. And that for us is a large reason that we remain and support the block grant, is it does allow that. And what we mean by that is all those categories that you saw before, if there's an area that we are underspending in just because of need or funding, we can then move funding from that category to another to help increase it. So you've heard us come before you quite a bit about contract changes. Those contract changes a lot of times are because we have reallocated funding within our areas, and we can do that. If we were not in a block grant county, we would be returning that funding to the state. And so we have really felt that it's allowed us to have the services that we need in Center County and do it. Since the beginning, so fiscal year 2012, with this year's tentative allocation, we will now have received over $50 million from the state. So $50,162,516 will have been received in Center County, allocated to Center County for human services. And of that, in addition to that, the county itself will have contributed $2,354,621 in our required county match funding. Those percentages can change. What our percentage was the first time we were in the grant till now, but it's roughly around 4.61% of our allocation the county contributes toward it. So that really is the categories, as we like to call them, of funding that we do. So as you can see, mental health, it really is a large portion of our mental health services that we provide to the community. This funding is primarily for individuals who do not have medical assistance, who do not have medical insurance, or have limited access to those items, and also are income-based. So we really do a lot of support for individuals that are not able to provide it through their medical care providers. We do, in addition, do services that are not billable for insurance. Our residential services are those. So our community residential services are fully funded with our block grant funding, because we have felt the need to provide housing at an array of services for individuals. So our intellectual disability services as well provide additional services in our community, and for services for individuals who don't have a waiver, as the state calls it. So we do a lot with employment, transportation, and home and community services. Drug and alcohol services, our outpatient is the same as mental health. Case management is important to us. So homeless assistance and human services development are under the Adult Services Office. We do a lot with our rental mortgage assistance program. As you can imagine, that is a very busy program for us every month. And we contract out for 90% of all the services that we do. We rely heavily on our providers in the community to do that, and we are unbelievably lucky to have them. And then we do homemaker and additional case management under human service development. So all those categories make up the 73-page plan that is before the board today. So to prepare for it, we held a provider training in February. We've just had a lot of staff changeover in the last few years with our providers, so we held a meeting just to talk about the funding, talk about how things work, budgets, all of it. We've got really positive feedback from our providers. So entering this fiscal year, we really had some great foundation to work from with our budgets. We held 2 public hearings on June 29th and June 30th. We held them both virtually, 1 o'clock and at 5:30 p.m. So all comments that we received at that is documented in the plan. We also received, I believe, at least one written comment. I might have received a second. Those were received through July 2nd. Both the plan and the budget is posted on the county website. We actually have a human services block grant site under human services that people can go to, and we usually have at least last year's plan and budget always on there so people can look at it. So what is different this year is that the state has passed a tentative budget, a budget for right now that only runs through November 30th, 2020. And so based on some guidance that we received from our associations, from counties as well, we will be doing contracts to the board after this plan is done and approved. You'll start seeing contracts. We will do the contracts for 12 months, but the funding in the contracts will really only reflect 5 months, because we want to make sure what happens come December 1 with 7 more months of funding we can accurately show and have that funding for. Because we are such a small portion of county match, it's imperative that we have state funding to do a lot of these services. So we really want to take the time to see how our spending is for those first 5 months, and then readjust our contracts with the remaining funding as those budgets are approved. All of our providers have been informed. We've had those conversations with our providers, so they're aware of it. They understand. The 5 months of funding that they are receiving is reflective of their spending for 1920. So we didn't do any drastic changes already. We're kind of moving into a foundation to build up from based on how the state passes their budget. So that's probably the biggest change you'll see post the approval of the plan, is you'll see me probably even more as we adjust our contracts throughout the fiscal year. But we did not receive any feedback from providers of concerns. You know, part of the plan, we did not either. So we feel comfortable doing this, also knowing that some of our partner counties are doing the same as well. Yeah.
We typically, when we do contracts here, we have dates and amounts.
Yeah.
The dates will still be for 12 months, but the amounts will only be for 5 months.
Yes.
So if it was a $120,000 contract, typically, we would still see the fiscal year, but we'd only see 50,000.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay.
And what we thought the reason that we did the dates is that then we just have to do an amendment versus a brand new contract for everybody. So it allowed us to keep the work statements, the expectations of the providers, the reporting, and the rates all pretty much the same. It's just the amounts that will amend then. So that's why we opted to go that way. So just real quickly, a couple of highlights for each of the programs. So with mental health, as this board has seen me this year, outpatient mental health services are a huge area for us that we would like to expand upon. So our block grant plan outlines the opportunity for us to do a request for proposal to hopefully attract additional outpatient mental health providers for our community and services, and so we have funding available in there for that. Our crisis services, with the developments over the last 7 months with our crisis services, we really took the time to highlight that in our plan and to continue to promote that. So with the Center for Community Resources now doing our telephone and our mobile and our walk-in, as well as SAM Inc. doing our delegate, we just highlighted that throughout our plan about the importance of our crisis services, how they're doing, and ideas that we have moving into 2021. Children's Collaborative has been a great partnership throughout the county with our school districts, youth providers, daycare centers, to really talk about children's needs and youth needs. And we've seen some really great outgrowth of that, of education and training. And we are also providing a service that is unique for us. It's a collaboration with Penn State Psychological Clinic to provide consultation to daycare centers for infants in early intervention. If due to behavioral problems, if a child is at risk of losing that daycare site, we are putting in supports by Penn State Psychological Clinic to do some consultation to help the family and help the daycare center address the child's needs. It's really unique, we have found, and it's automatically taken off when we offer that service. And so we highlighted that in our plan quite a bit. And then suicide prevention. Obviously, the young man that was up here earlier talking about veterans. We talk a lot about efforts that we can do in our community for suicide prevention. We have strong partnerships with Jana Marie Foundation, and several providers in the community are Out of the Darkness Walk, and so we highlighted those efforts, and we'll continue to do some additional outreach and education work based on our plan and for suicide prevention. Intellectual disability, really just two areas to highlight. Again, a collaboration with Penn State for a WorkLink program. It's a 2-year certification for individuals with intellectual disabilities or autisms who are seeking a post-secondary education experience and training. So because of a block grant, we can provide funding toward that. And so we had 4 young adults who went into the program in the fall semester. 3 of them successfully completed their first year and are planning to continue. And then we added additional funding for 4 new students as we enter the new school year. So it really is just a great collaboration, a great opportunity to work with some of our young adults who express a need and express a desire, but through this WorkLink program, we're able to provide the support that they need. And then, as always, the state does a lot of changes for us and has really increased some of the responsibilities that our office has with working with our providers, with working with investigations. And so we've added this. We actually added this last year in our 1920 plan, but we are now filling it for the 2021 year. We're adding a new program specialist to our intellectual disability department to really work on some of our quality initiatives, and we really want to increase that collaboration with advocates and families. So we have done.
Natalie, that WorkLink term, where does that come from?
I don't know that actually. I don't know.
I didn't know if that was homegrown or if that was something that.
I'll find out and I'll let you know, but I feel like it's not homegrown, but I'll find out for sure. And then drug and alcohol. We are doing quite a bit of that warm handoff process, as they like to call it, between Mount Indian Medical Center for individuals that come in. We are also doing that with our law enforcement and our emergency response teams, EMTs, to make sure that if they are, one, they have access to Narcan, which is the second item, and two, if Narcan is administered and we have an overdose survivor, that we really kind of discuss with them the opportunities for treatment. So we really emphasize that throughout our plan. Medication assisted treatment. We are continuing to offer that in our community. We have providers that we contract with that offer MAT that we feel is really important to have that treatment here in our community, and we work cohesively with them on that. Heroin and opioids, we have been tracking, as we all know, with the HOPE initiative, as well as our providers, but we also are now seeing an increase in methamphetamines, and I just said that wrong, but meth. And so we are really tracking that. We are really wanting to see how that's impacting our community, and it's impacting the state as well. And so we've just increased our efforts to make sure that our staff are educated on that, our providers are educated on it, and we are offering the treatment that's necessary for it. Sustainability, so as you know, we have 2 treatment courts, DUI court and drug court. Those were all started with grants, and as those grants start to expire, we will just need to make sure that we look at sustainability of those programs. And so we look at the block grant often as an ability for us to sustain, especially the case management portion of those. So we highlight that in our plan. And finally, adult services. So rental assistance and mortgage program is an incredibly important program in this community. We allocated almost an additional $20,000 to them last year, and we are continuing that this fiscal year just based on the need. So we will see an additional 2 to 4 households every month be assisted with that funding, which we find incredibly important because that's for individuals that are homeless or at risk of homelessness. And so we are working a lot with our providers on that. Our Homemaker Services is a service that allows individuals who have medical needs to remain in their home. It is more independent. It allows them to remain in their home longer term. It decreases opportunities for families to have to go into a skilled nursing level of care as long as some support's given. And we have really found that need to have increased over the last couple of years, but we've also then linked it with our new Community Health Choices waiver that was released. So we make sure that people are eligible for that. And then finally, all of the efforts that this department does in particular with data collection has allowed us to apply for all of those grants that you see before you, the Fair Rental Assistance Program, the Emergency Solutions Grant, the new PHFA funding that was just released as of yesterday. Those applications went live. And so through the efforts of our providers and staff, we bring in additional housing money based on the needs that we have in this department. And just real quick, so these are some of the areas that are not funded. So children and youth in particular is one area. These are not in the block grant, but sometimes people get confused. Aging has their own block grant. And so we just like to make sure that people understand this funding is different. We understand it gets confusing. Early intervention is not in the block grant. We would love it if it was in the block grant because we could really provide some additional funding, but they are allocated separately for us. And so we just like to highlight this, especially to providers, so they understand how their contracts with the county are reflected in the funding that they receive. So I talk about block grant a lot, so I know it. That's the team that makes up our plan. 73 pages is written and budget a lot by who you see on that screen: Michelle Henry, Kathy Arbogast, Deb Tate, Faith Ryan, Deb Homan, and Ryan from Sam Inc. Macalusa is a big part of our team who does this every month and every day, so it's important to highlight their work. So that's the plan that you have before you. With the plan, it comes to, I believe, just over $6 million, $5,761,544, with the county share being $282,739. It is due July 20th, so we are ahead of schedule.
Thank you, Natalie. That's $6 million in 10 minutes. Yeah.
I know, sorry.
No, that's good. That number, 50 million that you mentioned.
Yeah.
You know, if you reflect back to this almost being the 10th year doing this, it's a lot of work that's gone into this. And thinking about that first plan and this one, how it's evolved, changed, the needs have stayed the same, but there have been new ones that have come about. So it's good to pause and reflect on that. And thank you and your team for all the work that's gone into this. The public hearings that you held were informational. I think people really got a lot out of them. And first time it was virtual, and so that brought in some, I think, more people, additional people.
Yeah.
So thank you for doing that. If we still would get comment by chance, we can still have them send it over to you?
Absolutely, and again, you know, we did time it. When we get that due date, we work it backwards, so it does allow for the next week or so, as it's open to the board under consent to continue to have any changes and have any recommendations to us until we sign off and submit it. So yeah, it's still open.
Folks can go to the county website to review it, look at it, and again,
Yep.
give it a read.
And the PowerPoint that we presented during our public hearing is also on the county website. So a lot of the slides you saw today came from that PowerPoint that we did, and so they can also walk themselves through just some informational aspects as well.
Feedback, questions, comments?
Lots of work. Glad we're dotting all our i's and crossing all our t's, because the clawbacks for mistakes in something this big would be a lot of money. Very much appreciate everything everyone on your staff is doing for this, and the flexibility that the state legislature gives us, and that if we do have a particular pot of money where just the need isn't there this particular year, partway through the year, we can transfer that to another area where we are seeing increased need.
Yeah, I would echo Mark's comment. I think the ability to be flexible in your spending is huge. I think over the last 10 years, you know, before that, it was always you had this amount of money to spend on this program, and whatever money you didn't spend, you sent back, or, you know, perhaps didn't spend as effectively as you could have. Now we can move those dollars around and actually fill gaps that we need to make a lot of your programs, not only, you know, at the beginning of this process, but at the end of the process, be viable. And I echo Mark's support of the state legislature and the governor's office to allow us the opportunity to have that flexibility and continue to operate. I think it makes us more efficient, and it also makes your office and the other offices much more diligent in making sure that those dollars are spent effectively. And I think that's huge, and I think that's just good government business practice. So, thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. Okay. So the action would be to move it to the consent agenda for further comment from the public, and with final action coming next week. So would there be a motion?
Sure. Motion to add the fiscal year 2020 to 2021 Human Services Block Grant Plan to next week's consent agenda.
Moved and seconded. Any final questions, comments on this? Any questions for Natalie? Yeah, please, Gary.
Are there specific programs or services that have been harder hit by the pandemic, whether it's rental assistance, whether it's mental health, that you can look at and say, the last few months, you've seen an increase in need or services?
Sure. So yeah, so we actually started the second week in March getting statistics across all of our human services departments, and so those statistics are done every week, and we've been tracking those. You know, our home delivered meals, not in block grant, but in home delivered meals, we saw an increase in those needs as the limitations to go to the grocery stores and so forth occurred. So we definitely saw an increase there. Our crisis services at first, you know, as kind of decreased somewhat, but we are now back, you know, increasing back to what we were seeing before. People are using our walk-in center. Probably at first our walk-in center did not have a lot of people coming in, but that is now resuming. The people are coming into the walk-in center. They're seeing mobiles out into the community. So April into probably early May, we saw that first kind of just decrease as everybody, we're dealing with COVID, and now we are kind of coming back through. Children and youth has continued to see the needs that they have had, any reports that they've had, services that they've done for their children. Drug and alcohol services, I would say, has been a bit up and down. We saw some sharp decrease, and then we saw some rather sharp increases in some need for drug and alcohol treatment.
All right. Thank you, Natalie. So we'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Okay. Thank you very much, Natalie. Okay. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay. Okay, so moving into our consent agenda, we did want to give an update on our Resolution 16 of 2020 and talk a little bit about that, reflect on some of the public feedback we've received over the last week, and just go from there. But there have been some updates that we wanted to share in terms of the masking across the state and the country, especially the governor's and the Secretary of Health's new order that was signed on July 1st. So we'll recap that as well. So first, the reason why we're looking to do this again is from the health perspective and the economic perspective. We are seeing more and more states that are pausing or going backwards and reversing some of their reopening strategies. And the last thing that we want in Center County and also Pennsylvania, because if other Pennsylvania counties start to shut down or go backwards, it's eventually going to have an impact on us from an economic basis, from a visitor standpoint, tourism standpoint, and also the university standpoint as well. So we want to be cognizant of here's what we're talking about and why we're looking at doing this. As always, thank you to everybody, the businesses, faith community, nonprofits, other organizations, and individuals out and about in the community. Thank you for wearing a mask. We really, really appreciate it. It has continued to help us to keep our cases low and keep our people safe and our economy open. And again, this is it's not just wearing masks. Masks are a big portion of that. We talked last week about how states in early June versus late June, they saw an increase in cases in the states where they were not doing the masking, and a decrease in cases in the states that were doing the masking. And so, but it's an approach. So it's also about distance. We talk a lot about social distancing, but it also really should be physical distancing. We still want to keep connected with people, but it's really about keeping our distance, maintaining that 6 feet or more, and then also the hand hygiene as well is a big part of it as well. So. Just last week, 2 days after our last meeting, a letter was sent to the White House, to the Coronavirus Task Force, and it was a letter that was sent to the President, Vice President, and also the National Governors Association. And our national association, the National Association of Counties, or NACO, was also CC'd on that letter. But it was from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, Business Roundtable, and some other retail groups throughout the country. And it basically was calling on them to create a national masking standard so that all 50 states and all these different communities didn't have different standards, and then also clarified businesses' responsibilities and what that means. And so a link to the letter is there in the presentation. And that really came about because there was a study done by Goldman Sachs that said a national mask mandate could save the U.S. economy $1 trillion. And so essentially the study said if a mask mandate meaningfully lowers coronavirus infections, it could be valuable not only from public health perspective, but also from an economic perspective, because it could substitute for renewed lockdowns that would otherwise hit GDP. That's what their researchers came up with. So again, the business community is reflecting on this and saying, yes, let's start to encourage mask wearing and even going into the mandates as well. And so the letter, don't need to go through all this, but the last section I think is really important. Absent stronger measures to prevent transmission, that would really be the treatment or the antidote. What am I looking for? The
Vaccine, maybe?
Vaccine. There we go. The vaccine. Communities across America risk another round of shutdowns, broad restrictions on non-essential activities, and irreparable economic harm. So in terms of the states that have paused or reversing openings, that was a little bit of the impetus that we talked about last week. But this is a map here from Meet the Press, NBC News, that talks about the states that are reversing their reopening, principally California, Arizona, Texas, and Florida. And the states that are pausing their reopenings are also here as well. And again, this is, if you think about the bars being shut down, if you think about elective surgery being shut down, there have been many instances as the states have seen increases, they've had to, again, pause reopening or shut down. None of us want to go back to the yellow, red phase, anything like that. So we wanted to take some time to go through some of the videos that have been out there from people around the country. I think they're always helpful just to hear what's being said. And so there are 3 this week, and this first one comes from the Surgeon General and the Governor of Georgia, who has also paused the reopening, and I think it's a good message as well. It'll resonate with us here in this community, I think.
Hello, everyone. I'm United States Surgeon General Jerome Adams, and I'm here with Georgia Governor Brian Kemp. We want everyone to understand that the coronavirus disease is spreading mostly among young people, but there are things that you can do to stay safe, and the governor has a message for you.
If you want some college football this fall and other sports, wear your mask for the next few weeks. Let's flatten the curve and drive the numbers down. God bless.
We can do this.
So, Georgia Governor, obviously pressing upon people.
America, COVID stops with us.
The importance of wearing masks is, again, it comes down to football. West Virginia, just yesterday, actually signed a masking mandate, just came out yesterday, about 24 hours ago. And so they're seeing a sharp increase in spikes. And I think the governor of West Virginia, Jim Justice, has some good words as well.
I would say this to you. If you don't decide to wear the mask for yourself or the face covering, if you don't decide to wear it for one of your loved ones or your friends, do it for the 95 that have died. Do it for the 95 that we've lost. Because absolutely, West Virginia, you can continue to be the miracle. If we don't, the next thing that's right around the horizon is going to be, we are going to have to pull back and we're going to have to start shutting things back down. You know it's going to happen. You know that's going to happen. Absolutely, you have got to remember, West Virginia, we're the oldest. We're the most chronically ill. We're absolutely setting in the sweet spot that can cause more problems than you can ever imagine. We've got to move and move. Now, I'm going to defer to my general counsel, and he'll tell you just a little bit, and then I'll come back and finish up.
Interestingly enough, West Virginia, from my knowledge, is the only state that when they're doing their coronavirus briefings, they do it on Periscope. So that's why you saw those little hearts fluttering. People can like the video as the governor's talking. Lastly, Texas also had to pause their reopening and shut down. And the governor last week, on the same day that Governor Wolf actually signed his mask mandate, Governor Greg Abbott also signed a mask mandate for residents in Texas for counties that had more than 20 coronavirus cases, and it was for the majority of counties there. So again, the governor of Texas has, I think, some really, really good words as well.
But of course, one of the best ways to keep businesses open while also slowing the spread is for everyone to wear a face covering like this when they go out. Medical studies have shown that wearing a face covering slows the spread of COVID-19 and it protects you and your family. That is why today I am issuing a face covering requirement for all counties with more than 20 COVID cases. This safe standard requires Texans to wear masks in public spaces with certain common sense exceptions. This requirement is not intended to be punitive. Instead, we just need everyone to do their part to help to slow the spread. That's why the first violation of this standard is just a warning. Subsequent violations are subject to a penalty not to exceed $250. But let me be clear. No one can ever be put in jail for violating this safe practice. Local law enforcement has the authority to enforce this safety standard just like they do when enforcing seatbelt standards. Now, I know that wearing a face covering is not the convenient thing to do, but I also know that wearing a face covering will help us to keep Texas open for business, and it will help Texans earn the paycheck they need. I also know that not taking action to slow the spread will cause COVID to spread even worse, risking people's lives and ultimately closing more businesses. Now, it's understandable that our early success, it may have led people to think that the coast was clear, that it would be okay to relax a little bit. Just a month ago, there were few COVID-19 cases, and hospital space was abundant. Just a month ago, many thought that young adults had no reason to fear COVID-19. But today, COVID is spreading like never before. And the virus, it doesn't know and it doesn't even care what your age, race, sex, political affiliation, or geographic location is. It will attack anyone, anywhere, and even do it without showing any symptoms. We are now at a point where the virus is spreading so fast, there is little margin for error. If we want to avoid lockdowns, if we want to protect those we care about, we need all Texans to join this effort. We have slowed the spread before. Working together, we will do it again.
So that leads us to, again, on the same day that the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, had signed his order, the governor of Pennsylvania had also announced that the Secretary of Health was signing an expanded order for mask wearing. And that was done by Secretary Levine under her authority under the Drug Prevention Act. And that allows, again, for a requirement for mask in businesses, and also for essentially the way that they're phrasing it is must be worn by anyone whenever anyone leaves home. However, there are still exceptions. If somebody's walking in the park alone, obviously you don't have to wear a mask. If you're taking your dog for a walk, again, if you go out to a restaurant, you just wear it when you're on your way to your table. As soon as you get to the table, you can take it off and enjoy your meal. Again, children under the age of 2, individuals that are unable to put or take the masks off as well are exempted from it. And so it does still clearly give guidance for individuals that again, are accepted and they don't have to wear the masks. So as the governor of Texas had also talked about enforcement, we're still waiting on the governor of Pennsylvania to give us clear guidelines. He did mention similar things where local law enforcement would be able to enforce this. Again, we're waiting for more clear guidance on what that would mean. So essentially, the resolution that we talked about last week is very much the same that we had last week, but the big thing with this is it would add our voices in supporting what the action the Secretary of Health, Dr. Rachel Levine, has taken, and also Governor Wolf. We are still seeing a plateauing of cases, and so essentially what this would help Pennsylvania do, and also Center County do, is to keep the spread low, keep us out of lockdown, again, save jobs, making sure that we're also saving life as well. So the notable changes to the resolution are that we updated the cases in the United States. In the last week alone, we've had close to 300,000 cases in the country, and the most we've had. Again, we're seeing it from the states that are seeing that large increase. We also had some citizen comment about adding a section into the resolution about washing your hands before you put your mask on or sanitizing them. I thought that was a great idea. We also reflect the fact that the order was signed last week on July 1st. And in addition, there was an FAQ website that was set up. And we do want to note that the FAQ website that was set up by the Department of Health in Pennsylvania states that the order does apply to individuals inside and outside of local government facilities, courthouses, and other government buildings. In prior guidance for businesses that the governor and the Secretary of Health have released, local governments were essentially not mentioned. It was voluntary, but as of, again, last week, July 1st, the order applies to individuals inside and outside of the Willowbank Courthouse, transportation, MDJ offices, etc. And also we updated the therefore be it resolved sections to reflect the new order as well. So what the resolution specifically does, again, is endorses and supports this masking mandate for Pennsylvanians when they leave their homes, calls on everybody who's living, working, playing, learning here, visiting here, to wear their masks again when they're outside their homes. It extends our huge thanks to all the organizations that are helping us to wear the cloth masks, face coverings, again, to protect people, safely reopen our economy, and talks about the fact that we, through our CARES Act, are going to be allocating money for PPE for all those groups to make sure that we're all staying safe. It's going to encourage each of the 35 municipalities to adopt similar resolutions, and it would also send an electronic paper copy to each municipality for their records. And interestingly enough, we actually probably can send one thank you in 35 letters. Bellefonte Borough passed this resolution unanimously last night. They asked for a copy of this last week. It was on our website, and so it's very similar to this, but they unanimously passed it at their meeting last night. It's going to be signed and put on their website. So we really, heartfelt thanks to Bellefonte Borough. Again, the timeline was we had discussion at our meeting last week. Public comment has been coming in ever since then, and there would be a final action today as it's listed on our consent agenda. So again, saving lives, bringing jobs back, helping to avoid another shutdown. We are very blessed here in Center County. We have tremendous people, tremendous businesses that are really stepping up, that have been through a lot, and we're going to be helping them with CARES Act fundings in the weeks and months to come. And we had a great work session last Thursday at a commissioners meeting that we held virtually, discussing some more steps that we're taking to get ready to put that funding out. So we want to make sure that businesses and organizations know that we're going to be helping them out, get through these tough times as well. And again, we want to echo the thanks of citizens who've reached out to us with their thoughts on this. We appreciate the public comment, and again, we appreciate everybody taking the steps to keep each other safe. Keep your family safe, your friends safe, and our businesses safe as well. So I'll leave it at that. We can have any discussion, comments, feedback on the resolution if there are any additional changes anybody else had heard, but we'll open the floor at this time for further discussion before we look to approve the consent agenda. Yes. Yeah.
Well, my comments are fairly brief since we talked about this last week. The changes and additions seem to be pretty straightforward. Again, thanks for using the different color coding, so it's easy to keep track of what's been changed. If the scientific community is correct, and they usually are, wearing masks is going to save tens of thousands of lives. And even if you catch COVID, even if you're asymptomatic, it can appear that it does still damage certain body organs and body functions. If for some reason it's rare, but the scientific community is incorrect, we have had a minor inconvenience of having to wear something over our face, for most people, for a couple hours a day. Again, thanks to our frontline employees in the grocery stores, at gas stations, at a broad variety of retail establishments. There are a couple days a week where I do need to wear a mask for, say, 6 to 8 hours, and then you kind of start noticing it. A quick 30-minute trip to the grocery store, not such a big deal. But thanks again also to all of our medical staffs who worked diligently for several months early on in the crisis. Thankfully, we're getting a little bit of a break here, but the students will be coming back in the middle of August, and it's best if we have a culture in place where if you're around people, if you're indoors, you wear a mask. And I think that's the best we can protect ourselves. So I'm in favor of the resolution.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thanks.
I don't think anybody really relishes the idea of wearing a mask. It's sometimes very difficult. It's inconvenient, but there are values to doing it. And I think recognizing what the governor's trying to do indicates that we're serious. We're serious about making sure that our businesses stay open, that our families stay safe. And I just want to also recognize that this resolution as it stands is educational and more awareness-based. There's no enforcement end of it. Our job is to be cheerleaders, if you will, to the situation. I think the governor's just reacting reasonably compared to some of the other issues that are going on in our country right now. I think you saw it in Texas, you see it in Arizona, you see it throughout the Southwest. We don't want that return here in Pennsylvania. I think we like the idea that, being in the green stage gives us a little bit more flexibility and gives our businesses certainly the opportunity to function. I would not want to go back to March where things were shut down and we were isolated in our homes again. So using a bit of common sense, and believe me, it's difficult for me to wear these masks just as much as anybody else, but I think we are to the point where we need to be proactive in making sure that we don't return to the days of quarantine and isolation. And one of the things that I will notice, as much as we like to think that that time did not have a cost, sometimes we look at it in terms of economics, but if you look at what it does to families, what it does to society, what it does to isolation, and the mental health and substance abuse numbers, I think, reflect that. So we need to do everything we can do to move forward from this, and I'm hopefully there's a solution to this, whether it be some treatment or vaccine in the future, that we can become a lot more free, if you will, of all these restrictions. But in the meantime, when we're out among polite society, we need to remember that masks do save lives and certainly stop the spread of the virus. So,
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you both of you. I appreciate those comments. So again, this is educational, it's supportive, and again, we wish everybody the best here in Center County, and thank you for all the feedback. So with that, hearing no further comments on this item, not on the phone, we would look for a motion to approve today's consent agenda.
Motion to approve today's consent agenda.
I will second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on the consent agenda? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried. Okay. We have one more letter of support here. It is a letter of support for the CIU 10, and it's an application in partnership with Seneca Highlands Intermediate Unit Number 9 for funding through the U.S. Department of Ag to support 4 career and technology centers in their service area with distance learning training. So we wish them the best with this opportunity. Would there be a motion to approve the letter?
Motion to approve the letter of support for Central Intermediate Unit 10.
I will second.
Then moved and seconded. Any questions, comments on the letter? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried. Margaret, from Administrator's Report, anything to note?
Yes, just quickly, I wanted to share with you that the work is underway for an internal county relief block grant implementation team. We're meeting this afternoon. The group's comprised of our emergency management director, risk manager, controller, finance director, and the purpose is to really get some of the infrastructure in place so that we can actually administer the grant. It's not so much about the allocations at this point, it's about getting that fundamental infrastructure so that we can hit the ground running when the funding actually arrives. So first meeting is this afternoon.
Excellent. Yeah, that team approach is going to serve us well when, we obviously want to get the money out as quickly as possible, but there's various legal, auditing, contractual things that we have to put in place, and this team is going to allow you to focus on that, and then we can, again, have that larger picture of where we want to put the money and how we want to do it. So that'll be a really good approach. So thank you for your leadership on that and working through that. I think it should be a model that a lot of counties should look at in terms of how they structure that. So that's terrific.
It's going to take a team to do this.
Absolutely. And the clock is ticking, as we all know. December 30th. So thank you, Margaret. Thanks for that update. Okay, we would go to the check run. Commissioner Higgins.
Sure.
Smaller than normal check run of $1,217,18.85. Check of the week is to Election Systems and Software, which is our main hardware vendor for all of the elections equipment, and it's for $47,987.50. Elections aren't cheap, but we're happy we have the state-of-the-art equipment that allows us to process everything quickly and securely. Motion to approve the check run dated July 2nd.
Moved and seconded to approve the check run. Any further discussion on the check run? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor of approving the check run, say aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried. Okay. Any voter update?
Yes, there is.
Okay.
We have a voter registration report for today. There are 108,927 registered voters in Center County. There are 46,154 Democratic registrants, 149 Green Party, 675 Libertarian, 14,474 no affiliation, and 42,875 Republican voters in Center County. That's down 41 voters, which leaves a total of all other voters at 4,600. And among those 4,600 is the American Heritage Party. The American Heritage Party has one registrant here in Center County. I'd like to recognize that party. Now, I have to get caught up from last week when I was not able to give my report. I have two precinct reports. The first is Rush 74, which is votes at the election building in Munson, which is one of our county buildings, which is one of two facilities here in Center County which are used exclusively for voting purposes. And we want to thank all the folks that make that happen, but I'll do that in a moment. There were a total 108 registrants in the Munson number 74 precinct. Voter turnout was 41 voters, so that leaves a percentage turnout of 37.96. The folks that make it happen in Rush East, Georgiana Callahan as the judge of elections, Lisa Lucchini is the minority inspector, and Georgianne Dixon is the majority inspector. So we want to thank them for their hard work on June 2nd. Now the second one, which will get me caught up, is Rush West number 75. The First Church of Christ in Phillipsburg is where they vote. There are a total of 417 registered voters, which we have a total turnout of the day 175, which leaves a percentage turnout of 41.97%. So the Rush number 75 makes it happen with the use of some good leadership out there. Judge of Elections Deborah Thompson, Minority Inspector Carolyn Mekis, and Majority Inspector Brenda Kinjora, and clerks Julia Hollum and Shirley Coleman. So I want to thank them and thank the First Church of Christ for their opportunity to use their facility. And I know this was a unique election on January 2nd, but I think as we move forward, we're going to have an election board meeting after our current board here. The discussions for making it happen well in November have already started, so stay tuned.
Absolutely. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you. All right. We have no announcements that we have to note today. Margaret, in terms of executive sessions.
No executive sessions.
Okay. All right. Thank you. We have the balance of our schedule there. Marley, Gary will entertain any questions. All right. Okay. We would look for then, and we have no questions on the call here. We'd look then for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn at 11:23.
Second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody, very
Thank
much.
you.